Hello, my name's Phil and I work for the Customer Services Department at the Hozelock head office in Birmingham. With over 50 years horticultural expertise, we at Hozelock understand the rewards of gardening and want to help you get the best from your garden. Okay, so in this video I'm going to show you how to remove the impeller from one of the large Aquaforce pumps and just check it for wear and problems and abrasion. You'll only need one tool for this, and that's a crosshead screwdriver. So that's the only tool you'll need for this operation. The first thing we're going to do is remove the main electrical motor from the cage assembly. Remove the two retaining clips from the top half of the cage and open the cage up. And if you've fitted the wildlife protection screen, remove that also. You'll then see the main electrical motor inside the cage, which you can then just simply lift out. You can then put the wildlife screen and the outer filter cage aside until later. So with the motor assembly removed from the cage, we now need to take the pump chamber, which is this part of the pump, from the main electrical motor by undoing three retaining screws that are located deep down inside this recess in the moulding, and I'll just do that using the screwdriver. So we've taken the three retaining screws out that secure the pump chamber, and now we can just lift the pump chamber off the front of the motor. When we've done that, you'll see the impeller, which is this moulding here that rotates round and round, and to remove that you just simply pull it out of the motor assembly like so. What we need to do is just check the whole assembly for signs of wear, erosion, or any visual faults that may cause the pump to run erratically. In particular, check the blades of the impeller, make sure that these aren't starting to wear out. And also check this part of the rotor assembly here. Make sure there's no signs of deep scoring or deep scratches. Light scratching is acceptable because that's just normal wear and tear, but if you see any deep gouges or anything like that that's showing signs of unnatural wear, that's something you have to be aware of. So when we refit the rotor back into the motor, there's two holes in this flange plate on the rotor that are going to line up and locate with two notches in the motor here. So you'll see the two notches there, and then there's some holes in this plate that are going to line up with those. Before you fit the rotor back in, just make sure that this little sealing O-ring here is nice and seated firmly down onto the front recess of the pump, and then put the rotor back in gently. Rotate the impeller blades to locate the shaft of the rotor into the bearing, and then rotate this plate at the front of the rotor till it locates with the two locating pegs on the motor. We can then refit the pump chamber to the front of the motor by offering it up and pushing it home, and then finishing off by replacing the three screws and tightening them down into the motor. So now we've fitted the three securing screws to secure the pump chamber onto the motor, we can now fit the motor assembly back into the cage. When we do that, it's important to note where the cable is going to exit the cage, and there's a little slot in the cage so that you don't trap the wire between the cage halves. When we fit the motor back in, this elliptical shaped moulding has a slot all around the outside of it, and that has to locate in this little ridge here that's moulded into the case. So it just fits in there like that. Also, this flow control that you can leave that out, but you don't need to fit it. But if you do fit it, that needs to fit into the slot in the cage as well. If you're going to fit the wildlife protection screen, that's then fitted on top of the whole assembly like so. And making sure that the cable doesn't get trapped, the cage halves put back together and the two clips put back in place. And that completes the checking of the rotor. That's it, job done.